to come to this meeting. This is our annual Martin Luther King birthday celebration. And what a pleasure for us and privilege for us to be able to commemorate him on his birthday. Martin Luther King was born this day, January 15th, 1929, and we all know that he was taken way too soon from us, dying in April 4th, 1968. He was known for his leadership for civil rights, nonviolence, and his Baptist minister Christian background and roots were in everything that he did. And all of the things that he accomplished in his lifetime still serve to us as something that we all can look to. And we are all impacted still by the work that this leader has done to serve all of us. So his leadership and equity and service, are really the things that we are focusing on and we really remember and we all try to live up to. And today, it's a privilege to actually have the community organizations that we have here, Mothers of Hope, the Douglas, Dr. Michelle Johnson, who's a historian, and also the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP for their legacy and their contributions to equity and service for the community of Kalamazoo. So it's really our privilege and our honor to hear the history, because deep history that's right here in Kalamazoo of the work that these organizations have done and continue to do that model and that model the memory and what Martin Luther King stood for, with particularly service and equity. And there are so many quotes from Martin Luther King. It was hard for me to even choose, and I often have a lot of his quotes. But I guess the one that really fits for me, I have this as "I have a dream" because it's still so appropriate that he had, I have a dream, and it's a dream that he said is deeply rooted in the American dream, that the nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. And that's really still what we all look for and we are hoping for, and we must work together to have that happen. And for this actual celebration of these organizations and these leaders within Kalamazoo, the quote that most fits is, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" So this is really the model, what they've been doing for others and the service and what they've done to model the principles of what Martin Luther King stood for. So I'm really grateful to them. We honor you. We're waiting to hear about your history, and thank you for joining us this day. All of you also who have joined us, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn over the moderation for this rest of this event to Candace Moore, who is our coordinator for our offices of Health Equity and Community Affairs and Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Donovan Roy should be on this call too. And Dr. Donovan Roy is the Assistant Dean for the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And he welcomes you all as well as part of what we are our tradition from our offices. So thank you. Candace, I'm turning it over to you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I won't be before you long. There are 4 presenters who will be speaking on today. I just want to remind you all that this is being recorded, and there will be a link afterwards that can be sent to you if you are in need of sharing and want to share with others. So our first presenter is Mr. Sid Ellis. He is the Executive Director of Douglas Community Association and is originally from Detroit, Michigan. He currently serves as a board member of Heritage Community of Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo New Year's Eve Festival, Kalamazoo Civic Theater. I know you all have probably seen a lot of his plays. They are all excellent. And then the Western Michigan University Theater Guild. Sid is a member of the Downtown Kalamazoo Rotary Club in the Battle Creek Kalamazoo alumni chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He is a local community volunteer and has mentored middle and high school students for more than 25 years. He has been married to his beautiful, amazing wife, Renita, for over 27 years and has two amazing sons doing excellent work, Sydney the second and Quincy. Thank you so much. And Sid, we welcome you.
Have to always unmute. Thank you very much, Candace. I do appreciate the invitation to speak on behalf of the Douglas Community Association. I will now share my screen and get to a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to present to you. So, Douglas Community Association, a century of service. In 2019, we had the opportunity to celebrate 100 years of service to the Kalamazoo community. Many people do not know that we actually began as an association or an organization that was catering to Black soldiers who were stationed in Camp Custer, now considered Fort Custer. We began after community members who recognized and knew that these Black soldiers who had nowhere to go but came to Kalamazoo would be able to fellowship with others and themselves. They would be able to go to churches, barbershops, and some homes, but many of them, because there was so many of them, up to 400 or more, would walk the streets of Kalamazoo with nothing to do. And so citizens in Kalamazoo knew that this was not safe for Black soldiers during this time. And they knew that they also needed a place of respite. So several community members got together and began the Douglas Association. Now, of course, it's the Frederick Douglass Association. Now, the naming of the Douglas should be mentioned when the help of public-spirited folks, both white and Black, money was raised and an organization set up for a meeting place for Black soldiers. Now, Joe Pettiford and Forrest Hill were great admirers of Frederick Douglass because of the kind of man he was. They were proud that a man born in slavery with no opportunities loved freedom enough to make his escape and then spend the rest of his life helping less fortunate people. Douglass was a hero, and it was appropriate that a home for Black soldiers should be named for him. Thereby, the Frederick Douglass Community Association. Now I'm going to just show you some old pics of the Douglass. Some of you may remember these. This image is the Douglas Community Association building on East Ransom Street. Brick building that shows the visible, the first and second floor, the Douglas Community Association sign, parking for employees and the various things. Another look at that particular building. Now, you don't have to raise your hand, but you all know that this building does still exist. It's not been torn down. Some people have tried to renovate it, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on right now, but it is still there currently. This is a view of the groundbreaking ceremony at the Douglas Community Site on Ransom Street. As you can see, there are various people there, white and Black. Now, this image is a funny image, and if you look very close, you will see that this is an image of what is called the Womanless Wedding. Sponsored by the Women's Committee of the Douglas Community Center, this image shows approximately 24 African-American men, all dressed as women, representing a wedding party. The bride and groom are at the center. That was Dr. Cornelius A. Alexander, is standing in the front row. And from the left, painted stage background behind the group, basketball board hangs, overhangs, and various things. And so this was part of a fundraising event that they would do on an annual basis and present a womanless wedding. This was at the Ransom Street location. Douglas Community Boy Scout Troop number 17. And that is pictured from left to right, Clarence Small, Carl Barnes, Fred Coker, the troop leader, Quincy Franklin, and Gilbert McMickens. This is a view of the library that was located at the Douglas Community Center. And as you can see, the kids were there as they do now at the library. This is a view of African-American women and children seated at the lounge of the Douglas Community Center. Now, this was at the original center that was located at what was called Turnverine Hall, located on the 3rd floor of this building. This is not the Ransom Street building, but the first building that the Douglas Community Association was in. This is a dance at the Ransom Street location. And as you can see, WW2 soldiers are there dancing with local women. If you've never been in the Ransom Street location, which many of us have not, I had an opportunity to tour the building many years ago. But of course, as a citizen here in Kalamazoo, moving here in the early 80s, I had not had the opportunity to fellowship in this particular building. As you can see, there was a large gym, stage for theater events, and a variety of different things went on in this gym. The Douglas Community Association at that time, of course, served the African-American population. And so many of the things, most of the things that African-Americans did during this time was in the Black Arts and Culture, the Douglas Community Association. I'm getting my buildings mixed up. This picture is just some cool guy that I see in our collection. I just like to post it. I don't know his name. This was at the ice cream stand located at the Ransom Street location. African-American children at the Christmas pageant that was held annually at the Douglas. This is also at the Ransom Street location. The Douglas Community Association put on many plays and programs like this for the African-American community, but not just for the African-American community. The Kalamazoo community and the community at large, always welcomed at the Douglas Center. Girls basketball game at the Douglas Community Association. This is a daycare that was at the original Turnverine building of the Douglas Community Center. And many people who are, I would even say, at least 55 and older, who grew up in the Kalamazoo area, especially the Kalamazoo North Side, many of them came to the daycare at the Douglas Community Association. And at that time, African-American teachers were not offered opportunities in the Kalamazoo public school system. So many people who graduated as teachers from Western Michigan University and other universities around Michigan who lived in Kalamazoo actually taught classes at the Douglas Community Association to the daycare kids during the day camps and in after school programs. So these kids had the opportunity to be taught by certified teachers. Another Christmas program in the Douglas Community Center. As you can see, there is a large amount of people who were able to fellowship in this building and consistently did on a weekly basis. Douglas Community Association camp. So every summer they would have a camp, and that campgrounds is no longer owned by the Douglas. I'm not sure who owns it at this time, but many years ago, the Douglas, they were allowed to not actually just own it, but of course they owned it. And so they were able to take their kids to the camp. Now, this is a very interesting picture because one of our own, very own, she's not originally from Kalamazoo, but a pillar of the Kalamazoo community. Standing left to right, Olivia Gardner, Joyce Dunnigan, Magnolia Goodwin, Kate Coleman, Lee Owner Buchanan, Susan Moore, and in the middle, Juanita Goodwin and Ann Mae Williams. Many of you know Miss Juanita Goodwin. She passed recently, but she was very much a pillar of this community. And she was one of those teachers who was a certified teacher from Western Michigan University, but could not get a job at the Kalamazoo public schools. And so she began a job working at the Douglas Community Association as an after-school programmer. So she didn't just teach basketball, she taught the kids a variety of different sports. She was an avid basketball player, but she was also an avid golf player. And she was one of the #1 golf players here in the Kalamazoo area, also beating many men at that time. Here's a male basketball team: Walden Baskerville, Reniford Owens, Clifford Walker, James Wilson, Cecil Moore, Albert Scott, Robert Scott, Fletcher Walker, H.B. Gardner, and Albert McClendon. I love to mention the names of these young men and women because many of them, their kids are still here in the Kalamazoo area, and their kids' kids are still here in the Kalamazoo area. And if you're from Kalamazoo, you may recognize some of those names. Now, one of my favorite people here in the Kalamazoo area who also recently passed, Mr. Moses Walker, is pictured there, seated in that seat between those two men. Of course, many of you also recognize that Moses Walker has a building named after him at the Family Health Center located here on the north side of Kalamazoo. Moses Walker is a pillar of our community, and he has assisted many people and many organizations. We could really go on and on about Moses Walker. He was one of the executive directors at the Douglas Community Center. Here, pictured are from men who did the Home Rehabilitation and Conservation Program. Don Jackson, many of you know Mr. Don Jackson. He was the program coordinator. Robert Gallington, John Hollins, crew members Gilbert Bradley, former social worker at the association. So Mr. Jackson, of course, had what they called a paint crew. And every summer he would gather these young men and give them the opportunity to make money painting these houses. He, of course, also a pillar of our community. Mrs. Alma Powell wrote, "There are older organizations in the Negro community, but after the churches, no other has rendered the widespread service as the center, despite the harsh criticism and lack of cooperation it has labored under. It served no particular clique or favors, no particular church. It tries to seek out all people, particularly youth of color, and cater to them as far as their program will allow. It is trying, although it is a very hard job, to bring the Negro together as one large, cognizant, functioning group. The more churches there are, the more clubs, the more the group is split and scattered, but the center would like to bring all of the different units together. If they could accomplish this one aim, it would be a great service and a great feat." Mrs. Alma Powell was the first African-American library here in the Kalamazoo area. And if you did not know, the Alma Powell Branch Library is located in the Douglas Community Association. Our new building, or newest building, which was completed in 1984, is pictured here. And since then, we've had many more tenants join us. The Kalamazoo Public Library, Alma Powell Branch, was the first. Located in the Douglas Community Center, the Kalamazoo Public Library, as I said, Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kalamazoo, the Diaper Bank of St. Luke's, Urban Alliance, Michigan Works, Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes, Metropolitan Kalamazoo Branch NAACP, the Helen Fox Gospel Music Center, and the Northside Preschools. I would like to note that Northside Preschools is not a preschool itself, but it's an organization that assists parents with connecting them to preschools. Urban Alliance. Momentum is the program that is here located at the Douglas Community Association. It provides eligible, unemployed, and underemployed people with job and life skills. Oh, my picture is going ahead of me. Now it's on the screen. It's to job and life skill training to secure and maintain new employment. 70 clients in 2018 was here at the Douglas. These are some of the the graduates of the program. Members of the program having a tour at one of the facilities that they use for training. Associates of the program who help the students. Kalamazoo Public Library, MLK branch. I'm sure many of you have been here at the MLK branch at the Kalamazoo Public Library inside of the Douglas Community Association. That is a picture of Miss Alma Powell. A note about her is that, as I said earlier, she was the first African-American librarian. It's programming here at the Alma Powell Library. Continued images of programming. Boys and Girls Club of Greater Kalamazoo, located here, their branch at the Douglas Community Association. Images of their programming. Their visit to the African American Museum located in Detroit, Michigan, the Charles H. Wright Museum. Visiting the Western Michigan University basketball game. Helen Fox Gospel Music Center. Helen Fox Gospel Music Center offers music education for urban youth as a pathway for success and excellence in all areas of life. Mrs. Helen Fox, when she was alive, she would walk around the north side of Kalamazoo, and she would actually give lessons to people as low as 5 cents, 20 cents, 25 cents, whatever the kids or adults had and were able to pay. After she passed, her son and one of the members of her community thought that it would be best served if they created in her memory the Helen Fox Gospel Center and continued with their work. And so they continue to tutor at low prices for low-income families. Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes, promoting a hunger-free community since 1982. Loaves and Fishes is located at the community center as well, in the back of the building in our parking lot area. Michigan Works on-site employment support includes a computer lab and clothing rack, serve 30 to 40 walk-ins per month. The Mobile Food Initiative is an initiative with the Kalamazoo Loaves and Fishes and the Food Bank of South Central Michigan. Food distribution every third Wednesday each month beginning at noon. Serves 260 individuals and approximately 85 families each month. Kalamazoo Parks and Recreation Summer Camp is located here each summer. Girls Inventing Real Life Solution works with girls ages 13 through 16 to provide a safe space to explore restoring their voice and their power. Young Men of Promise. Young men are connected with men in the community who can show them their options for opportunity while also simply showing up to support the youth who are present. The end goal of the program is to assist the young men in obtaining their promise. These two programs are programs under the Douglas Community Association. St. Luke's Diaper Bank provides free diapers to the greater Kalamazoo community. In 2018, we provided diapers for 2,500 families for healthy living. The USDA Breakfast and Lunch Program, Meet Up, Eat Up, provides free breakfast and dinner at Douglas for youth during the summer, and now during the season where we actually have what is considered a learning hub here at the Boys and Girls Club, and those breakfast and lunches provided. Of course, adult youth basketball is called Study to Play. Study time for 1 hour and a tournament play. We are working with the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety in this program. Northside Preschool supports parents as their child's first and most important teacher and prepares children to be kindergarten ready. NAACP Metropolitan Kalamazoo Branch serves the greater Kalamazoo community. God's Kitchen, a new organization within the Douglas, feeds up to 145 people per week with a hot take-home meals every Wednesday. It will go to every, oh, well, that was cut off. Sorry, I cut and paste somewhere. Forgive me. Community Action, dedicated to helping people achieve and maintain independence. Community Action organization, they assist people with things such as winter reservation of your home and finances as well. And if you did not know, the Promise Community Credit Union started here at the Douglas Community Association last year. The Douglas seeks to maintain and operate a facility that sees hundreds of users daily who expect open doors to a safe and welcoming space. Just recently, we were able to complete and produce A Century of Service, the Frederick Douglass Community Association book. This book celebrates 100 years of our service. Just read this little bit of information to you. A Century of Service, the Frederick Douglass Community Association is not only a history book, it is a community story. The hardcover first editions are now available during a book release fundraiser for those who donate $50 or more to the Douglass Community Association. For more information or to pre-order your copy, call the Douglass Community Association at 269-343-6185 or visit www.dcakalamazoo.com to purchase using the donate button. Place Century of Service in the memo line. Additional posters may be required for those who request delivery. We are so proud of this book that was written by our own local Sonia Bernard Hollins, a local writer here in Kalamazoo. Her and her husband completed the production of this book just recently, and it is now for sale. We do have copies here at the Douglas. As stated, you can go online or you can just give us a call for more information. As I said, we are very proud of the work that we've been able to do in serving the Kalamazoo community, and we long to, or we know that we will continue to be in long service for this community. Thank you very much. I think Candace is now Q&A if anyone has questions for me about the Douglas Community Association.
Thank you so much, Sid. And if you all would like, you can give Sid, Mr. Ellis, a hand clap, applause. It is actually located in the reaction button. I see a few have already done so. Awesome. If you do have questions, feel free to add those questions to the chat at any time. And then if you, after the presentation, when we do ask for questions, feel free to unmute and ask your question or make a comment if you like. I just want to say thank you, Sid. This was like great, rich history of Kalamazoo. It makes me appreciate Kalamazoo even more. And then I am going to actually post the link if anyone is interested in pre-ordering the book. That will be in the link for you. So feel free if anyone, will take just a couple of seconds here if anyone has any questions.
I want to thank you too, Sid, for that rich history and all of the resources that the Douglas actually provides now, all the community organizations that are housed there and so many more that I didn't really even know myself. So thank you. I just want to ask a question about the book. In the book, is the history included of all the people you mentioned in the pictures?
Not all of the people, but several of those pictures are featured in the book. And so the history, so all of those names are not in the book, I would say that. So all the pictures that we have for over 100 years, a lot of the names are not with the pictures. So we, some names we had, but very, very few. So, we have pictures from 80 years ago, 70 years ago, but even pictures from 30 years ago, we may not have all of the names of all the people, but it is a very rich history of the Kalamazoo community.
Thank you.
So someone asks, is the book going to be direct shipped or available for in-person purchase? The book is available for in-person purchase at the Douglas Community Association. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So come on down and bring your check or cash. We are not able to take credit cards at this time. but you can use your credit card again on our donate button that is located at our website.
Sid, I had a question.
Yes.
What has been some of the high points that you've experienced or see, say within your tenure at the community center?
Okay, I came here in 2018 in October. So I've been here for over 2 years. And of course, the first year was basically really trying to celebrate the 100 years. And so we started out with an open house, which showcased all of our tenants, which I thought went very, very well. We had a family get together in front of the Douglas, and we also marched in the Memorial Day parade because of the veterans. But one of the major highlights was our 100-year dinner celebration. That went very well. It was very well attended, and it also offered rich history for the Kalamazoo area, as well as seeing the kids run through the Douglas. That's always good. And of course, right now, that's not happening with COVID. And so we can't wait for this season to be over to see the load of kids that we usually have, whether they're in the library or the Boys and Girls Club. And so I would also say that one of the highlights have been watching some of the kids mature in the last 2 years and seeing them grow. So that's a major highlight for me. Thank you.
Sid, I'd like to say about the parking lot improvement just to the facility should also be considered a highlight.
That is a major highlight. Thank you, Dr. Myers. Thank you very much. Yeah, getting that parking lot complete was an awesome feat. The behind the building and in front of the building. So we're very proud of that. And it's a very welcoming space. So please come and enjoy the Douglas Community Association. I think that's my time.
Thank you again. And people can know how to contact you and for the book to find more of the rich history for the Douglas. Thank you so much, Sid.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sid. Okay, so next we have our very own Stephanie Williams. She is a lifelong resident of Kalamazoo, a public servant elected to Kalamazoo City Commission, serving a four-year term, and the Kalamazoo County Commission, serving as the very first Black woman to the chair of the Board of Commission. That's so awesome. Stephanie is a mom and a grandmom. She enjoys spending time with family. This is so special because Stephanie is actually going to present first. And then we also have along with her, her mom, Miss Gwen Lanier. So I'd like to do a quick introduction about her as well. Miss Gwen Lanier is a co-founder of Mothers of Hope. She works as a peer support specialist at Ministry with Community. Gwen has over 30 years of sobriety, and every day she shares her life lessons and journey to recovery with others. And so we have two amazing women that are going to present, first starting with Miss Stephanie Williams and then Miss Gwen Lanier.
Thank you, Candace, for that amazing introduction. Hello and good afternoon to everyone. I actually am going to reverse that if at all possible. We want to open up with one of our co-founders of Mothers of Hope, Mrs. Gwen Lanier. So take it away, ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning to you all. I would like to first have the privilege to give all honors to God for being alive today and for having the privilege to be here with you all. I am just so excited about this opportunity. So look, this is how I want to start. I want to make sure that I get rid of all the butterflies and that's in my stomach right about now so that I can do my best job that I can. So I would like to ask you all, if you all would please join me in with everybody at this time, and on the count of 3, raising their hands in the air, okay? 1, 2, 3. Okay, now that is supposed to get rid of my butterflies and welcome each and every one of you here today, and to give honor and respect to Dr. Martin Luther King. Okay, now we'll go on to talk about a little bit about who I am. Actually, I have the privilege to be a great grandma and a granny and a mom. And Stephanie Williams is my youngest child of 3. And I am in recovery. Unfortunately, I grew up with some of the things that some people have, that being in low income areas. I ended up being a teen dropout from high school. Then I ended up being a teen parent. And then unfortunately, I ended up being a substance abuser. But what God did is he took those things and he turned them around for good. So today, I had a privilege of being a peer support specialist, which is kind of like a paid sponsor. If anybody have any idea about a 12-step program like Narcotics Anonymous or AA or different other 12-step programs, they suggest that when you join those programs, that you find someone that's in that program that have at least a year abstinence from whatever that is, and that you ask them to be your sponsor, which is like somebody that'll work with you, that'll help you out, that'll talk with you, that'll share their experiences, that'll support you, that'll be available for you. So I'm like a paid sponsor. So I get the privilege to work with people that's thinking about getting clean from drugs, getting clean from drugs, want to get clean from drugs, that maybe want to get clean from drugs. And then I get to get the honor of getting paid for that, so I can financially take care of myself. So through that process, I had the honor over 30 years ago to get hired at Ministry with Community, which at that time was located at 440 North Church Street, of a building that they just tore down. And when I got hired there, I ended up getting hired in as a part-time dishwasher. I had about maybe about 2 years clean, abstinence from an IV shooter. And I got a chance to get hired in as a part-time dishwasher. I remember I loved that job. I used to stand at the end of the doorway where people would come in at or exit at, and I would pre-wash dishes and fellowship with people. I got the privilege to know the members there individually, and a lot of them I grew up with in one form or another. I've had the honor to live in the North Side community for several years. Actually, ever since I've been in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which has been since 1968. And so I know a lot of the families that are here, a lot of the families that are here know me. So the job when I got hired in was perfect for me at that time. Because I'm still at Ministry with Community, I've had the privilege to get a couple promotions. I've had the privilege to return back to school. I had the privilege to get a GED and about a little more than half of the credits for a associate's degree at this time. Then I have had the privilege to be one of the first people to be in the classes that they went in partnership with. That was through Mental Health, the Recovery Institute in Kalamazoo Valley, where they created a class to train people to be peer support specialists. And that's where we will go back into where we were in recovery, and we will go back into the communities and help other people to be successful in recovery from drug addiction. So as I journeyed on from that and still was employed at Ministry with Community, which I still am, I had the honor to be appointed from being a staff to serve on this board in Kalamazoo County that was a little more than 20 years ago, that was called Laura's House. And it's where they had several people from different nonprofits that made a committee. That their name was Laura's House, and their purpose was to create a treatment program in Kalamazoo County where women could go to treatment and take their children with them. I was very excited about being appointed to that committee. When I became a member, I realized that the majority of the people on that committee had no drug experience. So I suggested that they created an ad hoc committee of women that were in recovery that would give them suggestions. So when we organized that group of women, at that time, we organized them in what was at that time Safe House, which was an aftercare center for drug abusers. And it was under the roof of, it was under the Mount Zion Baptist Church at that time. It was a program that was through the church. So when we started out, we had about 50 women that showed up at the first meeting. As time continued on, unfortunately, it drizzled down. But we met for 2 years. We created 5 job descriptions for a treatment center and all the rules for a treatment center. And through that process, we named ourselves Mothers of Hope. So as we continue to journey on, when the grant writer from that board, Laura's House, Dave Artley, who at that time was a county grant writer, and Dr. Michael Liebman, who was a substance abuse therapist at that time, joined me in organizing this group that named themselves Mothers of Hope. And we met for 2 years. And then when 9/11 came and they returned the grants that Dave Artley had written for Laura's House and said that it was the year 9/11 and they wasn't going to do any new programs, the Laura House committee itself had been meeting then almost 4 years, and they decided to disband. But because the ad hoc committee of Women in Recovery, who was Mothers of Hope, decided that it had been made a good impact on our individual recovery, and we decided to stay together as Mothers of Hope. We just had to come up with a new purpose of what we were gonna do in a new mission statement. So at that time, Dr. Liebman and Jane McComber, which was the supervisor to the foster care workers, they both decided that what they would do is that they would find places that we could do presentations about substance abuse. And so we did that for a good couple of years. And then we organized with a group of women that were on the north side that were attempting to address the teen violence at that time. And that was Yolanda Donegan, Stephanie Moore, Yolanda Niels, Tara Cedar, Potts, and a few more others. They were already meeting. They were attempting to address some of the teen violence. So we merged with them. And from there, at some point, we were doing brunches, and we were doing topics like getting promise ready, where we invited the school superintendent at that time, Miss Dorothy Young at that time, and some teachers, and we talked to them about how we were parents and that we needed some assistance with getting parents promise ready so that the parents could get their children promise ready. And that was just one of the topics of one of the brunches that we had. We had several more. And so as we journeyed on, we started doing Ultimate Family Reunion, which is one of my favorite events, where we were at, by the time we did it on our 10th year, we was up to about 5,000 in attendance. Then we replaced that with the March, which hopefully you can see a video of. We have right now, our first place that we were placed in was the Douglas Community Center. And we were able to get a property donated to us on 603 8th Street. So we moved from the Douglas to there, where we still are. And from there right now, what we do is we do several activities there, and we rent to a 12-step program of Narcotics Anonymous that meets on Saturdays. And then in that group, we provide a home cooked breakfast for them. And we just continue to work in the community and do as many things as we can about substance abuse. to build relationships, to work with families, to support them. And it impacts my personal recovery all the time, because at one time, my life seemed like it was over. And I remember at the very end of my drug use, I was completely suicidal, and I thought there was no way out. And today, I have 33 years clean, and I'm really totally grateful. And I am so honored to have the privilege to share with you today. Thank you.
So I'm in a tag team with Gwen, which that is a super act to follow. Gwen's testimony is one that is absolutely amazing and has inspired me my entire life. I want to just share some information with you about Mothers of Hope, who we are. I was showing you all some slides earlier as she was speaking. Everything that we do is really rooted in recovery. And when you think about Martin Luther King, the history of not just civil rights, but also human rights, Dr. King was intentional about fighting for, advocating for, being a champion for, and a drum major for human rights, for the least of us who struggle in the community. And I think that's why Dr. Dixon, Gwen's testimony, her life work, and what she's poured into professionally and Mothers of Hope, and also personally, really makes a difference in how we come together and celebrate the legacy of Dr. King and how it really plays out in the lives of the most vulnerable people in our community. And so, although Mothers of Hope, we do big community events, about issues, we're talking about barriers, we're talking about how you overcome those barriers. And of course, we're giving everybody the tools, the techniques, the skills to be able to address those barriers as well. And so that's where we come into play and being able to keep the dream alive by working at a grassroots level, oftentimes, Dr. Dixon, at a grass seed level, to make sure that we empower people in the community that we're working with every single day. And Dr. Myers, what we don't do is try to take them out of their element. We go right into the heart of the community. Many times we're sitting in the houses, the homes of people who are struggling, and we're just enhancing some things that they need to learn, giving them access to tools, to resources, showing them how they can access other opportunities, but at the end of the day, empower them to be able to address their own situations and to be able to advance in the community. I want to show you just a really quick video of some of the work that Gwen and those folks at Mothers of Hope have been doing, and then I'm going to come back and wrap it up for you guys as well. And I'm not good at technology, but I'm going to try this. Hold on. Uh-oh, now y'all are in the inbox. Can you guys still see the screen?
Yes, we sure.
Okay, great.
We can't see the video, Steph.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Okay, wait a minute. You can only hear it, you can't see it?
Can't hear it well either.
Oh.
No. Steph.
Yeah.
So maybe just talk through it, or
Go ahead, Mom.
I was gonna say you could stop sharing, and then try to share again.
Okay.
Yeah, take your time.
All right, we're gonna try one more again. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I called you. Can you see it now?
Oh, yeah. We can
Can't hear it though.
Yeah.
Can't hear the video. Can't hear it.
Definitely, if you click on the lower right of your video, you could get the voice, and then you can turn the volume up. There we go.
I hear you, Dr. Hart. What did you
There
say?
you go. There you go. Now just, there should be a volume there, right at the very bottom right there. Double click on it and the volume should come.
Yeah, it's at the highest.
I think you have to share your audio when you go into share screen. There's a place that allows you to access your audio on your computer.
Hey, this is for Mothers of Hope. This is an outstanding opportunity for community to come together, be one. We can't do this job alone. We gotta help and heal our community every day, one day at a time, one recovery at a time. It's a struggle. We have law enforcement. We have all types of relationships out here with Mothers of Hope to make this and end this opioid epidemic. We have our community.
We'll have a celebration of recovery. What we'll do, we'll celebrate people that are in recovery, and we'll celebrate people that need to be in recovery. And we'll celebrate families who have lost family members to drug abuse. We'll celebrate family members who have family members that have finally found their way in recovery. We'll be celebrating family members who have people that have not yet found their way in recovery. So we will do a unified recovery celebration, healing process at 603 8th Street next Saturday, August the 3rd from 11 to 4. And today was just a kickoff for the celebration.
So I'm just going to take just a couple more minutes and try to wrap this up, but I wanted to share with you just some information that we learned in the process of garnering information from people within our community during all of the events and such that we had. And so we did a lot of distribution, particularly last year during COVID-19, when everything began to shut down in mid-March. We were on the ground, accessible and available to people within our community. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. And what happened was we had a volunteer, Shakita Lewis, who was one of our super volunteers. And one of the things she often talked about was the barriers that she had. And one was having access to clean laundry. And so we knew that going into this pandemic, that many people were going to have some challenges trying to actually de-escalate the spread of the COVID-19 virus, especially since hygiene played a huge part in that. And so what we did is we began distributing free laundry detergent, that and bleach, ammonia, all the supplies that we could to help parents who now are not only at home from work, but at home with their children, trying to figure out how they actually can keep themselves safe, alive, and like I said, decrease the spread of the virus. And we learned a lot. Every time we have encounters with individuals, we have discussions. We also collect data, and we ended up distributing over 4,000 between laundry cards and laundry detergents throughout the COVID pandemic last year. We also had the ability to give over 3,000, 4,000 face masks. We partnered with the Northside Ministerial Alliance and other organizations to make sure that we were doing our best for essential workers, first responders, but just low income, vulnerable people in our community. And at that same time, Dr. Dixon, we were still providing our free piano lessons to over 38 lessons to youth. We were still operating our weekly recovery support groups. We were still making sure that they had access to one another, to the supports that they needed in a safe and healthy and welcoming environment. And through it all, we distributed thousands and thousands and thousands stuff regarding the PPE to everyone that we came in contact with. So just in summary, I want to tell you, in terms of the mass survey, we learned that the majority of the people that were coming up for the supplies were women, many women of color. They lived right in the core of the city of Kalamazoo in our urban neighborhoods. They also talked about their personal needs in terms of food and connections to other resources that they needed. They also said that they wanted masks. They needed the mask. Many of them had some issues affording or having access to masks. And there was a very, very, very low number of individuals who said that masks were not essential. In terms of the COVID-19, we did a specific survey around asking people, how were you during the pandemic? Were you sick? Did you seek medical treatment? Were you given treatment or denied? How did it go for you? What were your symptoms? And so we had thousands of folks, over 1,000 people that responded to that survey. And as we were doing that, I was having conversations with the Family Health Center, with Denise Crawford, with some other folks, health practitioners, Dr. Cheryl Dixon. So we were learning in real time what were happening right here in the community to the most vulnerable people within Kalamazoo County. And so that's what drives our work, is being so grounded and connected to people in the community, having relationships, having people like Gwen and Dolores, who are leaders in our organization, have lived experiences that others can identify with. So as we're talking about advocacy, empowerment, as we're talking about really creating life-changing tools and resources for folks, people trust the voice of the leaders of Mothers of Hope. They come to us and they actually act. We're able to really get people involved. Once they come to our events, more than likely 9 out of 10 actually come back and volunteer with our organization in one way or the other. They refer other individuals to come to our events. We have the help with securing financial support, volunteer support, to make sure that our work continues. We are based in Kalamazoo. We're over 20 years old. We are probably the least funded nonprofit organization in Kalamazoo, especially in these last 3 or 4 years. And to be honest with you, the majority of our funding support does not come from Kalamazoo, not from local philanthropy. Our money comes from our national partnering organizations, Black Women's Roundtable, Black Voters Matter, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. And ironically, a huge part of that money actually comes from Kalamazoo to Washington, D.C. and back, and they redirect it back to Kalamazoo to us. So it's really important to know the organizations, our structures, what we have going on, and to be able to adequately support the work that we have the capability of doing. So I definitely want to open it up to any questions that folks may have of us for the organization. I do want to tell you that we are led by a board of directors. that we are a nonprofit. We're always looking to secure volunteers and of course fundraising as well. But we are talking about real issues in real time with the people who are often disconnected, not always engaged, very rarely asked to be at the table where other leaders are talking and discussing and having conversations about us. But yet we are very knowledgeable with the lived experience, the education, the skills, and the resources. And lastly, I can tell you that inclusion and equity is at the top of our list. Honorable Curtis Bell, one of our former board members. Hello, sir. And so we are doing this work. We believe in partnerships and relationships. We believe in protecting our community, particularly the young people that we work with. And I can tell you in our music program where we provide free piano lessons to adolescents, and bless her heart, Mrs. Dorothy Young, who was one of our long-term board members, operated, or she managed that, our Dr. Michael Leitman Music Enhancement Program. And she recruited the kids and stayed with them and worked with the parents and worked with our instructor. We actually contract a piano instructor. She comes in and she provides one-on-one lessons to the children. They have 2 recitals a year. Everything is free. We provide the piano. Many of them have keyboards at home so that they can practice every day. And we make sure, because we know that that helps with their social emotional learning, with their math, with their reading, making sure that they have everything that they need. And Sid, the majority of these children, if not all, come from families where substance abuse is prevalent. There's a history there, mom, dad, or somewhere along the line, they have some substance abuse disorders within their immediate family and household. So we're doing everything in a holistic way to really help families be able to take care of themselves, to be empowered so that they can be advocates, so that they can be strong leaders right here in this Kalamazoo community. And that, Candace, I think is really living the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King, to be able to really bring the community together, to take care of itself and not just to wait for someone or for the next Dr. King to come around. So if the moderator allows, we're happy to answer any questions we can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Someone did make a comment how they are interested in learning more volunteer opportunities and also donating. So I did add your the website mothersofhope.org to the chat. But feel free, if anyone else, if you want to ask Mrs. Stephanie and Mrs. Lanier any questions, feel free to.
And while someone is unmuting, I would not miss the opportunity to acknowledge my board member, Dr. Cheryl Dixon. Our president is Dolores Johnson. Our vice president is attorney Dorphine Payne. On our board, we have Jessica Taylor, Teresita Potts, Yolanda Dunnigan, Veronica McKissick, newly elected to the county commission. I don't think I'm missing anybody. Oh, Dr. Bridget Weller. Oh, and one of my favorites, the Honorable Don Cooney, is the only man who survives this board of women. He's been with us since day one, and he's been a champion. And let me tell you, he don't let them give him a hard time either. So.
I don't have a question, just a statement, and that is, I applaud that you guys continue to be boots on the ground servants in the community. You don't just talk, you don't just have meetings, but you put action, you put yourselves in action, and it's greatly appreciated. And I'm sure it's tireless, because we always see y'all doing something. But that's it, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to echo that, the boots on the ground and the work you do to actually do the connection, and you know, that really reaching the people is like, and again, to do it totally volunteer is the key piece. I do also want to mention that one of the historical that still touches me is how the Ultimate Family Reunion was first started. Gwen tells the story. She told that story to me, and I just still feel like how it started and why it started. It was, I don't know if she wants to tell it, but she's still there. But, you know, it's at a time when, you know, we're in the middle of a lot of civil unrest again, right? Not, I shouldn't say again, but here it is. And the story was that the Ultimate Family Reunion was created, and at the first one was to get safety for the Black community because the Ku Klux Klan was marching through Kalamazoo. And that's the
Absolutely.
history that I remember of what she said about that, you know, to make sure everyone was going to be safe during that time.
Absolutely. And Curtis Bell, you were there with us then. And it was very similar to what happened recently with the Proud Boys. We had white supremacists come to Kalamazoo. They were known to go into the community and just rattle off and start things with the locals. And we wanted to provide a safe place, especially for the young people who we know are not afraid, who we know would not, run away. And so we did that at Spring Valley. It turned out wonderful. Hundreds of people, young people joined us. We had no issues, not one incident. We were secured by retired police officers, James Ray and those folks. And we were able to have discussions there about what we needed to do as a community to stay safe, to provide other activities. They gave us ideas of what young people were interested in at that time. And we just continue to build and build and build on that. Having those conversations, those relationships, respecting the voice and space of people is really important to do this work and to be able to sustain it. Even when the dollars aren't there and all that good stuff, the love a lot of times, draws us through it. We were, unfortunately, we're not advised when the next set of folks came, the Proud Boys or whatever, because we would have definitely told them to do different things. But it's a learning lesson just to know that there's a lot of wisdom right here in our community. A lot of folks who know and understand the algorithms and the things that people are doing, engage these folks. They are the Martin Luther Kings. They are the legacy. Engage them and empower them to be able to help push this work forward.
Again, thank you for all the work that you do. And if anyone has questions, put them in the chat and can go forward. But thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Mothers of Hope.
Thank you.
I would just like to end with thanking you all for giving me the honor and the privilege to participate with you today, because Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream, and I think that we all in one form or another are part of that dream. And I think that the work that we all do in one way or another has connected to that dream, and I'm really grateful. You guys, I can't even put in words how much of a privilege today it is to be here. And if I can, I would like to please say thank you to Judge Bell, because one of the things that happens with Mothers of Hope, with us helping families to repair, a lot of those families come through the family court in one way or another. And it's great having people there that care about people. And I think I've done great without getting emotional today. So I'm going to stop here.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you all. And I just, I'm speechless, but I just have to say, I appreciate you sharing your story, your journey, your lived experience. And thank you for giving us a up close and personal look at, what you do for our community is very important. So thank you. Next, we do have another speaker who's going to talk more about this whole idea of the purpose of why we are here as well. She's going to join in just a moment. I'd just like to introduce you all to her. Her name is Dr. Michelle S. Johnson. She is an historian and co-founder of Institute of Public Scholarship. Dr. Johnson serves as a public scholar in the fields of African American history, literature, and cultural production. She holds a BA in Humanities from Michigan State University and a PhD in American Culture from the University of Michigan. As the co-founder, executive director of Fire Historical and Cultural Arts Collaborative for 10 years, Dr. Johnson managed multiple initiatives where numerous layers across widely diverse populations intersect. She researches, writes, and lectures for academic and public settings on an aspect of Black culture, including Kalamazoo, Saginaw, Detroit, and Black resorts such as, I want to say, Idlewild, Michigan. Is that right, Dr. Johnson? Okay, it's awesome. Dr. Johnson's creative collaboration includes poets, musicians, playwrights, and even interviewing subjects, including, for example, community spaces of the industrious, the oral histories of African Americans and Latinas in Saginaw. She is also the co-founder of Institute of Public Scholarship in the Arts, Science, and Humanities. Dr. Johnson has been named a 2021 Rubinger Fellow to establish the Cultural Land Trust as part of LISC's support of innovative community development initiatives. So if you could also give Dr. Johnson a welcome, and you can use your reaction at the bottom to welcome her. Dr. Johnson.
Well, thank you so much. I am deeply honored to come behind my representative, Stephanie Williams, as well as Gwen, Lanier, and Sid Ellis. I've worked especially with Stephanie and Sid over the years, and am very familiar with the work that Gwen has been doing. And again, to be in that community is a significant honor and privilege, really, in many ways. Thank you for that introduction. I want to talk just real briefly about Martin Luther King. I'm kind of in two positions here. I am both a historian and a public scholar, but also I have a tradition and history of establishing a nonprofit here in Kalamazoo, and in the process of establishing yet another one, even though I said I was never going to do it again. So I am happy to be here in both of those roles, and particularly have studied and taught classes on Martin Luther King. And I think that one of the things that's so significant about his connection to this conversation that we're having is that, and in addition to the dream that he had, he was on the ground, and he was on the ground doing very radical political activism at that time. And so he disrupted the status quo at every step, through boycott, through protesting, and through challenging legal systems in significant ways. And so and especially, again, I'm going to invoke, again, my representative, Stephanie Williams, who I think very much follows that tradition. And so today I'm going to talk, and thank you so much, Dr. Dixon and Candace, for putting this together. This is such an important conversation to be having. So thank you again for that. What I'm going to do, kind of from that position of being both a co-founder of a nonprofit and also a historian and public scholar, is to kind of hone in on some of the pieces that are often kind of left out when we talk about the work of Martin Luther King. And that is the role of women, and the role of Black women in that history. And I mean, there are a lot of pieces that have left out. You know, Bayard Rustin, for instance, a Black gay man who organized the March on Washington, is often also left out from the stories that we tell about Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement as we understand it. But also the women who fueled that movement, who made sure that for instance, just the March on Washington alone actually happened, are quite frequently left out. And so when we start digging into Kalamazoo history, we start to see how very important Black women have been to the movements of social justice over time and continue to be. And so I want to begin. I do have what you call PowerPoint, and so I want to share a little bit of that with you. Though I'll try not to rely too heavily on it. But so this is my current title that I just came up with this morning: From Vision to Organizational Activism, Black Women in Kalamazoo. And so I want to begin by talking about my co-founding of Fire Historical and Cultural Arts Collaborative with Denise Miller, but also Candace Lavender, who some of you might know here in Kalamazoo, was one of the foundational board members of that organization. And Fire was established really to be a responsive organization. In fact, when we first opened up, we didn't even intend to be a nonprofit. We wanted to try to provide some cool vibes for Black folks and folks on the margins in Kalamazoo, putting forth hip hop programs, hip hop shows, poetry. And until COVID, Fire's open mic poetry was the longest standing open mic poetry show in the region, rivaled only by a spot in Chicago. And so we really started out with Denise and I with establishing this organization as one that really said yes to anybody who came around. You want to do a hip hop show? Cool. You're a young person and you want to see movies on the wall? Cool. And so we really kind of built on what the tradition is in improv theater of yes and so the strength of the organization over the years that I was the co-founder and executive director of those 10 years was really a response to saying yes to folks who wanted to do theater, saying yes to people who wanted to do radio, saying yes to young people who wanted to study graffiti. Really, the list is endless. And so that piece was really centered on thinking about notions of social justice and what we called creative justice. Creative justice, understanding that the first most important piece to justice, at least from this model, was folks getting a sense of who they were, what their identity was, what their passion was. And so in doing that, we focused a lot on nurturing and identifying what people really love to do. The next piece of that was identifying how to get those skills to folks to be able to articulate their authentic selves. The next piece was providing an opportunity for them to express it, whether they were a emerging hip hop artist or a social justice organizer or a cook or someone who had a green thumb. We said yes to a lot. And so basically then identifying and bringing in the folks that were able to help facilitate the skills that folks needed to generate that authentic expression of themselves. Then we thought about the importance of them being able to sustain themselves in their authentic self. It's great to discover, for instance, that you like to be a DJ, which is where I kind of started in many ways my passion for DJing. But it's good and it's great to know that's what you love to do, and now you got the skills, but you also have to have the opportunity to express it. You need the canvas, you need the microphone, you need the stage, you need the garden to be able to do that. So that was the fourth component of the creative justice model. And finally, we thought for a while that that was enough, that if people who were typically marginalized in our community have access to their authentic self, they've got the skills, they've got the opportunity to express it, that would be enough, because then folks would be kind of at the center of themselves and the center of our community. But we knew that the creative justice model was something more than that. We knew that it was also people being able to pass on and facilitate the authentic realization of others. So it's not enough to just, like, I know who I am, I know what I do, I'm good at it. But in order to be a true advocate and realizer of the creative justice model, you had to facilitate at least one part of that for other people. And so that became a critical component of our creative justice model. And one of the key things that we were interested in doing is kind of inverting the notions of economy that we have to put forward an idea of the passionate economy. That folks, as all of us probably have been raised at one point in our lives, is like, first you do what you gotta do, then you do what you're good at, and if there's any time left in your life, then you do what you really love. We were really focused on switching around that paradigm and saying, first, what do you really love? Now you got to get really good at it. And now you just have to do it because it is so much a part of your soul that you can't live without it. Following with, for instance, ideas from like Audre Lorde, who thought about those ideas very strongly. And so it was a wonderful 10 years. The organization continues to live on. Denise and I kind of passed on the baton 5 years ago now to a really fantastic group of emerging activists and emerging organizers. And the organization has become really focused especially on the social justice and the development of youth, which was always a significant part of the organization. So I say that to again suggest that that came out of the dreams and visions and skills and background, not just of Black women, but of a larger community, but especially folks like myself and Denise Miller and Candace Lavender, as well as many others. But our traditions go back further. I didn't mention, and that's not in my bio, I am a Kalamazoo native. I was born here. I was a bouncing Borges baby, but had my feet in 2 communities. I was also raised, in addition to south side of Chicago, Saginaw primarily, but Kalamazoo was my down south. You know how people send their kids down south to Mississippi or Louisiana. I got sent to Kalamazoo. And so Kalamazoo became, and I continue to have family here, became a significant part of my cultural identity. But I didn't know when I was growing up, say for instance, and I'm going to share my screen again, that we had significant folks here in our community going further back than the time that I was growing up, or even the time that I've been living. And I want to kind of harken back to 1915. And so this is where I put my historian hat on and talk about someone significant to our community, Lulu Margaret Williams. And some of you probably know Jacob Pinney Johnson, who is also a significant activist and scholar, a public scholar in Kalamazoo, and one of the co-founders and our director of community partnerships for the Institute of Public Scholarship, and is a descendant, is the great grandson of Lulu Margaret Williams. So who was Lulu Margaret Williams? She was a native of St. Joe County, as you can see there, and lived on, it says Parker Street in the, if you can read the screenshot, I mean the screen here, it says 720 Parker, but that is also Pioneer Street. It's currently Pioneer Street. And in addition to being in communities with significant folks, movers and shakers and Black history at the time in 1915, she also, together with a group of other commissioners, put together the Michigan Manual of Freedmen's Progress. The Michigan Manual of Freedmen's Progress was absolutely powerful because in January of 1915, our then governor approached a group of folks, Francis Warren, people from all over the state of Michigan, especially Saginaw, Kalamazoo, Bay City, and Detroit, to do a quantitative and qualitative study of the status of Black people as a result of, after the 50 years of the 13th Amendment, not just emancipation, but the 13th Amendment, when people kind of suggested that while flawed, that invoked a larger component of our history. I mean, of our freedom and emancipation. And so over the course of 6 months, Lulu Williams and a group of other folks, Oscar Baker, Francis Warren, Charles Warren from across the state, came forward and put together this quantitative and qualitative over 300-page document of the status of Black people in in Michigan. And Lulu Williams, over on Pioneer Street here in Kalamazoo, was a significant part of gathering that data and reaching out to folks in the larger state of Michigan to tell the story of Black people. Now, this was particularly important, this document, because in addition to like short biographies of people like Williams and other folks that were involved, there's also extensive conversation about the death rate and what the reasons were that Black people were dying at that point. There's an emphasis on the homes that people had, the businesses that folks had. There's a commemoration to the veterans that had served in the Civil War, thereby kind of facilitating our freedom as Black people, not just in Michigan, but in the larger country. So we see this fascinating document that tells the story of Black people, again, largely people who had property at that time. These are, decidedly middle-class folks or people who are becoming middle class, because not all of them are coming from that place. But this was also in preparation. It wasn't just to gather this data, the really rich data. And Western Michigan has a link that you can access online for this really important document. But this was also in preparation. As I mentioned, they gathered all of this data for publication over the course of 6 months for something called the Lincoln Jubilee that was taking place in Chicago. And so here are some of the commissioners. I'm kind of like right here, this guy right there, that's Oscar Baker from Bay City, that's not too far from Kalamazoo. And up here is Mary McLeod, and she was married to one of our significant inventors here in Michigan. But again, this was in preparation for the Lincoln Jubilee that was taking place in Chicago, and it took place between August and September of 1915. And folks from all over the country came together. 18 different states were represented, including the territories of Puerto Rico, and came to Chicago to demonstrate the progress as well as some of the challenges of Black people over the last 50 years at that point. And so this was a significant gathering of folks, people like Ida B. Wells, some of you know who she is, was present. Also Carter G. Woodson. After this conversation, he formed ASALH. Carter G. Woodson, as some of you know, is like considered the father of Black history in the United States, and also founded Black History. Well, at point that was at Black History Week. Some of y'all remember we just had Black History Day, then it was Black History Week, and now we got the 28 days. But Carter G. Woodson was instrumental in establishing that. But this commemoration of Black freedom and Black history connects Kalamazoo very deeply, not just to what was happening in Chicago, but because the Lincoln Jubilee and the folks who organized that reached out to representatives of Black people in every country that they could find Black people to identify what's your status? What's it like in Brazil? What's it like in France? What's it like in Australia? They reached deep because we were deep across the world. And so Lulu Williams here in Kalamazoo is deeply linked to a diasporic perspective of what emancipation means. And so I'm especially passionate about this because, you hear a lot about Juneteenth, and Juneteenth is great. And here in Michigan, we have a longer standing tradition about celebrating emancipation that goes back in Michigan to 1839, but here as early as the 1840s in Kalamazoo, and later, 1895, a significant celebration goes on here at the Turing Hall, Sid, I'm so excited to see those pictures, right? So 1895, we have a huge celebration of emancipation in Turing Hall, and bringing folks together, musicians and activists and folks from the region, from Chicago, coming to Kalamazoo to talk about the importance of our emancipation that was rooted for folks in many cases at that time to the West Indian emancipation. So I have they say an axe to grind about Juneteenth, particularly because we have such a long-standing tradition that is a very different narrative than we frequently hear about when we talk about Juneteenth, because many of you know the story, Black folks just didn't know they were free for almost a year. And so Juneteenth represents this moment when they're like, aha, for real, we're free, hallelujah. Well, which isn't true necessarily. That's just when it finally fell, the Confederacy fell. But our traditions and people like Lulu Williams links us to a very different tradition where we knew we were free, right? We knew anybody was free. We knew when folks were free in the West Indies. We know when folks were free in other places. And so Lulu Williams was a significant part of putting forward that story of the knowledge of our freedom and the celebration of it and what it really means. So in the Michigan manual, there are featured 2 different Black women clubs, social clubs, and the social clubs are a significant foundation for us here in Kalamazoo. And that was the Dorcas Club and also the Let Us Be Friends Club. The Dorcas Club, as you can tell up there at the top left-hand side of hopefully of your screen as well, these are more established folks. Lulu Williams was someone who helped found the Dorcas Club, and they came together to create opportunities to be able to pull together, say for instance, clothes for Black children who were going to school here in Kalamazoo and might not have necessarily have had all of the resources to be able to fit in socially. And then, because you know, when you don't fit in socially, it's real hard to pay attention and to be present in the educational process. So Lulu Williams and these other Black women, up to, I think there were 12 that were involved in that organization. Lulu Williams established that, and it continued on. And then the bottom right-hand corner, you have the Let Us Be Friends. This was an organization connected to the YWCA, the Young Women's Christian Association at that time, which has also been, in addition to the Turing Hall, a location for Black people to convene in Kalamazoo and to organize and to identify and serve the needs of our larger Black community. And so as you can see, this was a group of younger women, but these the folks in the Dorcas Club helped mentor and listen to the Let Us Be Friends organization. So now I'm going to jump I'm jumping like, oh goodness, like 150 some years now to talk about, oh, let me back up, my apologies, about a significant and impactful publication called Focus News that was published from the 1960s, I think 1963 until 1986. But as a historian right now, don't quote me exactly on those dates. I think in large swaths sometimes, specific dates sometimes bug me. But this is a very impactful publication that came out, was published for a period of time every other week, but then went down to once a month. That is a rich resource. And as the public scholar for the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation, we're digging very deeply into this, all of these documents. And so, thinking about the role of women, when I went into my archives and pulled this up, I came immediately to this first document. And this is from 1967 in Kalamazoo. And we see right here from the beginning, this is actually, I think, June of 1967, an article titled Art Show Bazaar Slated for Farrell Park, June 24th. And now Farrell Park, it's not called that anymore, but it was at the corner of North and Rose. Would that be kitty corner from what was then Van Avery, if I think? Or no, that's on Burdick. So it's just down the street from there. And so what's significant about this piece here, this particular article, is the who's who of women that were involved in organizing and putting on this art bazaar. The art bazaar was on the north side and organized largely by Northsiders, and had significant and substantive participation from various groups, the Bon Ami Club, the Dulcets Club, the Starlighters Club, the Scout Troop Number 4, even Las Madres were involved in this. But I want to bring your attention specifically to some of the folks, some of the women who were organizing this. And this was, Sid, part of the Douglas Community Association's Women's Auxiliary Club, right? So these are just some more folks that were making the Douglas Center go in the 1960s. And so you all know these names, I bet many of them, again, because this is a who's who. Haven't been able to find out who Naxie Grant is. If you do know Naxie Grant, let me know. But we have Mrs. Anna Witten, Georgia Walker, Thelma Shotwell, Shirley Kirk, and Mrs. Greta Johnson. They were all involved in helping organize this. And so I want to give just a little bit of detail about each one of these women, just to start to identify for you what some of the themes are and the interconnected trajectories of this powerful group of women that you see before you. Many of you know that Anna Whitten was the first Kalamazoo Valley Community College Black Board of Director in 1968. She was significant, and so that's her right here in the middle. Right there, there's Mrs. Anna Whitten. She was instrumental in education, civil rights, healthcare, and issues around hunger and rights for the incarcerated. She was also very much involved with, desegregating her husband and her father's barbershop in Kalamazoo, and was a kind of in the background, as many women were at that time, in the background of the NAACP and in the background of the protest, the 1963 protest against the segregation at Van Avery on North. And so in addition to that, she was helped establish an organization called Focus, not related to this publication, but she established Focus, an organization to facilitate young people being able to transition from a community college experience into a four-year institution. She was involved with Loaves and Fishes, the Kalamazoo Family Health Center, the Ecumenical Center, which was formerly, in fact, I remember the Ecumenical Center as the first Alma Powell Library. And so she was involved with the Ecumenical Center. Also the Kalamazoo Ladies Library Association and LIFT, the housing development behind the Douglas Community Association. Many of these women were very much involved with Allen Chapel, with Allen Church. And so we cannot negate how important church organizations were to the activism and social justice that Black people were involved with, but especially Black women. And Stephanie, I want to quote you and talk about in relationship to Anna Whitten, and particularly as we start to see the way these legacies pass on. And my representative, Stephanie Williams, wrote, "She demonstrated what a real woman was and showed me that being Black was not something to feel ashamed of, but that my being Black meant that I was called to a purpose that was larger than myself, and that I have a responsibility to reach back as I move forward. That I should never allow adversities or circumstances to keep me from living in a way where others will see that the work I've done is speaking long after I'm gone." And so that's a beautiful tribute, but also really one of the principles, it seems to me, of Black women activists and Black women organizers in Kalamazoo that reach back and listen to the folks that come before them, but do that only in as much as they can serve the present and the past, but reach forward in the future with our young people. And so Anna Whitten was one of those people who lived that, was involved in organizations throughout the course of her life. She lived, I think, to like 95 or something like that, and never stopped. And I had the honor to be able to interview her in connection with the project with Stephanie Williams. And so, but that's just one of the powerhouses at this table that we have here. Next to her, we have Georgia Walker in the kind of printed dress there. And now what's notable is many of these women were not raised in Kalamazoo. They didn't come from Kalamazoo, but they came here, they dug in, they understood the community that they were in. And if they didn't, they learned to understand that community and serve those communities throughout their life. Georgia Walker was married to Dr. Lewis Walker. Many of you know him as a sociologist here in Kalamazoo, and someone who has been, from the time he got here, been again digging in and serving our community. She was involved in the helping professions. She worked for several years for Planned Parenthood and for 15 years with the Family Independence Agency. She was involved with the local Democratic Party and also the Dulcet Club. So we got to do a lot more storytelling about the importance of the Dulcet Club here in Kalamazoo, because they raised funds to be able to serve and respond to the needs of the Black community. Also in the back, the first person, a little bit more obscured there, is Thelma Shotwell. And she was born in Tennessee and came here and was married to Fred Shotwell. And she attended, all of these folks attended college. These are very formally educated women. But she worked for the Kalamazoo County as a child guidance counselor for 10 years and the Upjohn Company for 13 years. And she retired, and after she retired, and this is a key, these women were working their whole lives to make our community better, but once they retired, they didn't stop and kept going. And Thelma Shotwell is one of those people who continued to work with the Junior Girls Organization, and also this was a senior companion for senior services. In the back there on the furthest right, you have Greta Johnson. And she's, of these folks, from what I've been able to discover, is the only woman who is specifically from Kalamazoo, but she did go to university at Wilberforce in Ohio. She was employed for a number of years as what looks like a private family, and also a member of the Allen Church. She was significant there, involved with the Matrons Club, the Missionary Society, the Young People's Department, also a member of the Dulcet Social Club, the Breakfast Club, the Eagle Lake Ladies Association. And so Sid, because that camp that people went to was Eagle Lake, I bet there's an interesting connection between Greta Johnson and some of these founders and that camp at Eagle Lakes. But also she was with the American Business Association. And then Gloria Lett, she's not pictured here, but another Black woman in Kalamazoo, an activist from Manistee, Michigan, who went to the university, went to Western Michigan and got her bachelor's and her master's degree there, and was the research biologist for Upjohn. And she was the only Black woman employed in that profession at Upjohn at the time that she was there. She was also on the Kalamazoo Public School Board of Delta Theta. She was in Delta Sigma Theta. So, you know, shout out to Deltas. They just had their anniversary just this week. And also, you heard it like how many times now, also part of the Dulcet Club. And so these women that you see here and the ones who you don't see here that are part of this larger article illustrate a number of key things. One, as I mentioned earlier, Black women are coming here and making Kalamazoo their home, but also serving our community. But also you see the very significant relationship between the church, the Allen Chapel Church, and activism and social justice. You also see that these women are putting on this event here at the park. They're taking over a significant amount of space, right, to be able to put this on. They're putting on a multi-level bazaar with vendors and speakers. And so, but they're also doing that from a place of intersection with multiple organizations. People, they're not just working at the Douglas, they're working with a number of organizations to be able to maximize their energy. And again, as I mentioned earlier, they're making lifelong contributions. And I see you, Candace, I bet that means you're coming for me. I just want to close by talking about the Institute of Public Scholarship very quickly. And so this is a new organization co-founded with a team of public scholars that have been doing this work over, you know, collectively, we've probably got, I don't know, 200 years of expertise. People like Dr. Ben Wilson, Denise Miller, Jacob Johnson, Joanne Mundy, myself, Deidre Courtney. We've got a whole fabulous group of folks that are thinking through how we bring our tools of scholarship to address the issues and our tools of scholarship in the arts, humanities, and the science. Dr. Dixon is on our science team to really kind of hone in, especially on the east side, on a very particular property, all of the layers of challenges that come to creating space for Black people on the east side. And so I'm very excited. We just received a grant from the Stryker Johnston Foundation to be able to do and to start some of this work. So the last thing that I want to say as I close, is this tradition of Black women leading organizations goes back as far as the 1915 up to the present. And if we just think about the Black women that are in charge of organizations in Kalamazoo right now, in addition to the Mothers of Hope, we have Sydney Davis at the Black Arts and Cultural Center. We have Shalana Lewis, who's working with TRHT. We have Kama Mitchell, who's doing work at Rooted, Remy Harrington with Kazoo Family Farms, Denise Crawford at the Family, in fact, at the Family Health Center, Sonia Bernard Hollins for MERS Tate, Pat Taylor with the Eastside Neighborhood Association, Maddie Jordan Woods at the list goes on, right? And so we have to nod our heads to the women who have come before us, and also to understand that all these women that I talk about at the Douglas Community Center, they were contemporaries of Martin Luther King, right? Anna Whitten was not too far off the same age as King. And so while we focus on Martin Luther King, it's so important to focus on the women that have made that dream a reality over the course of their lives, and not just made his dream a reality, but expressed their own vision and their own ideas about where we should be as Black people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. This was amazing. I would like, if you could, those who have questions, if you can add that to the chat, and then Dr. Johnson, if you can stay around for a minute to answer some of the questions through the chat, that'd be great. But I absolutely loved your presentation. A lot of things that we just didn't know. But we do, for everyone, we do have one last presenter that I'd like to introduce you. And I just want to thank you for your time as we just wrap up our session today. Dr. Harvey Meyer is an executive committee member for Kalamazoo Metropolitan NAACP branch. Let's welcome him as he discusses how the NAACP has honored the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. Myers. And I see that you're on mute, Doctor. I'm going to see if I can unmute you. Let's see. Okay, maybe not. Can you unmute yourself, Dr. Myers? Here we go. Perfect. Oh no, so we can't hear your the video being played, but we can.
So I think he has to do with Dr.
Stephanie, go. You unmute yourself, Stephanie. Yeah, that'd be great if you can give him.
Have Dr. Meyer go up where you share the screen at. It also tells you to give access to the audio.
What did you ask me to do?
When you go to where you see your screen share at the top of the screen, go to the far right end and it'll click down for view options and it'll say allow audio to play, to share audio.
You say on the right side?
Yeah, right at the very top where you're doing your screen sharing at, it says view options, I think. It should be like a little drop down box, I think.
Way at the top.
I have the top. It says meeting info, hide names, hide video, share computer sound.
Yes, share. There you go.
Okay, let's try it now.
Shamika, I have a felony record and I vote.
Hi, my name is Esteban.
Katie, Kim.
What's up? My name is Ed Genesis. Bill.
Michael Wilder.
I have a felony record and I vote.
I have a felony record and I vote.
I have a felony and I vote.
Felon and I vote.
I have a felony
record and I vote.
I have a felony and I also vote.
Election day is the one day when all of our voices are equal.
Voter suppression silences the people in minority communities.
You can vote if you have a felony on your record.
When you vote in your community, it gives you the power to speak to the people in power of your community.
So make sure you know your rights and vote in every election.
Many people of color have marched, fought, and died so that you could have the right to vote. You have to vote to put the people you want to in office to represent your neighborhood and to fight for the agenda you want to see pushed.
In the state of Michigan, people with felony records retain their voting rights. So as people begin to vote this election year, it's important to understand what Michigan law says about your ability to cast a vote in our elections. People confined in jail or in prison who are awaiting arraignment or trial are still eligible to vote. A person has their voting rights restored the day they are released from jail or prison after serving their sentence, even if they are on probation or parole. In Michigan, you can vote even if you have a felony on your record. If you're not registered, you can fill out a voter registration application in person at any Secretary of State branch office or at your county, township, city clerk's office, or at a voter registration drive. You can go to Michigan Secretary of State's website to check your voting registration status. This video is brought to you by the Kalamazoo Metropolitan Branch of the NAACP.
And can you hear me now? In 2020, the Metropolitan Kalamazoo Branch produced the awareness video that you just viewed to educate the public on the voting rights of citizens with the felony records in Michigan. This 2-minute video has been shown all over Michigan. It was shared by local judges, put on the Kalamazoo City's website, MLive, News 17, News 3, and 95.5. The NAACP honors the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. While much of the NAACP history is chronicled in books, articles, pamphlets, and magazines, history of the NAACP and actions and life of Dr. Martin Luther King are intertwined. The NAACP and those who honor the legacy of Dr. King are on parallel paths to awaken the consciousness of a people and a nation to make life better for all involved. What I like to do in the brief time that I have remaining is to cover the birth of the NAACP, of the Kalamazoo branch of the NAACP, and give you a feel for the activities, the major landmarks done by the national office, as well as those things that are being done by the branch. In the early 1900s, Blacks, or colored people, as they were called, were being hanged in public squares as entertainment. Let me repeat that. In the early 1900s, Blacks were being hanged in public squares as entertainment. They were mistreated in public places and clearly denied rights and privileges as citizens. This climate led to the Niagara movement, the Illinois race riot, and a letter that I like to say by Mary White Overton, which all led to the birth of the NAACP. Dr. E.B. Du Bois, the first Black PhD out of Harvard University, and a friend of his, William Monroe Trotter, called together an organization or group of people in New York City to address how to improve treatment of Blacks in the country. Unfortunately, the hotel where they originally booked didn't realize they were colored people. And when they showed up, they were not allowed to use the accommodations. So Dr. Du Bois and the group, they moved to Niagara, Canada, where they held their first meeting. And hence the name became the Niagara Movement. The primary purpose of the meeting was to call for opposition to the racial segregation and disenfranchisement of the Negro. They wanted to get respect and better treatment for colored people in America. They continued to meet yearly to devise plans to improve treatment of Blacks in America. And about 3 years following their getting together in 1905, a very horrific riot occurred in Springfield, Illinois, which became known as the Springfield Riot. This was published in newspapers across the nation. And to use today's terminology, the information about this riot went viral and people became disturbed. They took notice. It was like the George Floyd situation. And many prominent people in high places began to speak in support of improving the situation of colored people in America. And they decided to do something. And in 1909, Mary White Overton, Justice Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, she wrote a letter to somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 plus of her friends and to arouse their consciousness to do something about the plight of the Negro in America. She induced 7 Negroes. Dr. D.E.B. Du Bois was one of them. Ida B. Wells was another, just to name a few. She wanted to work to support improving the situation of colored people in America. The group consisted of very prominent Americans who had the power to bring about change. There were labor leaders, organization founders, authors, professors, bishops, rabbis. Unfortunately, no minutes recorded. But they did agree to meet again. The group organized and it resulted in the birth of the NAACP. Its structure then is very similar to what it is today. Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois was the only Negro officer in this group. He insisted that the name of the organization be the National Association of Colored People instead of the National Association of Negroes. He wanted to include colored people so that it would gather all people of color under the tent. Its official formation date is actually February 12th, 1909. Anyone knows what that date is? It was designed to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. The NAACP current officers are similar to the original founders of this organization. Our current national leader is Derrick Johnson, President and CEO. He, like Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, was very prominent during his time, and he has done great things for the organization. And since I mentioned the national, I think I should at least make one comment. I'm doing this talk in place of Wendy Fields, who is president of Metropolitan Branch of the NAACP. She's in her third year. She was just recently elected in November of this past year. And this gives you the officers and the members at large in the organization. The mission of the NAACP is shown here. Dr. King's SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Council, was organized in the churches to fight civil rights, civil disobedience, and to eliminate segregation. Whereas the NAACP is structured with units in different cities and states fighting to eliminate racial hatred and racial discrimination. And the NAACP works primarily around political, educational, social, and economics improvement. The Crisis is the official magazine of the NAACP, and it was founded by Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. It is the oldest Black publication in the world. It is a quarterly journal of civil rights, history, politics, and culture, and it seeks to educate and challenge its readers about issues that continue to plague African Americans. And if you become a member of the NAACP, you do get part of your membership is to get a subscription to the Crisis magazine. Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896 predated the NAACP. However, it was the Supreme Court ruling that established separate but equal Jim Crow laws that I suffered as a young man in the South in the 60s. Brown versus Board of Education was the legislation that was the beginning of the end of the Jim Crow laws. Thurgood Marshall, lead counsel of the NAACP, led the fight. He worked for 10 years on bringing a suit of Brown versus Board of Education. And when he won that suit, that was beginning of the end of Jim Crow laws in the South. The NAACP landmark, bear with me, let me do one thing. I'm trying to take some things out. The NAACP, come on. I like to at least mention Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, and the Fair Housing Act. These are three acts that were passed in Congress with the help of two major organizations along with parallel civil rights organizations. Dr. Martin Luther King was in constant contact with Congress at the time that the Civil Rights Act was being discussed, and just shortly before it was approved in 64, and the NAACP was there. The Voting Rights Act, likewise, which prohibits racial discrimination, the NAACP and the Reverend Martin Luther King were working together to get that passed, as well as the Fair Housing Act, which also has all three of these greatly improved for Blacks in America and going a great distance to fight discrimination, segregation in America. That was the national level. Metropolitan Kalamazoo Branch of the NAACP was founded in 1946. Its watershed or major activities came about, one, in 1963, when the Van Avery drugstore, which was located where the present day ecumenical senior citizen is located in the heart of the Black community. Their customers were primarily Black, but they refused to hire Black clerks. And the NAACP, along with other citizens in the Kalamazoo area, boycotted Avery for days, if not weeks, which actually brought about a change in policy and increased Black employment. A second case that the NAACP was involved in 1971 was the desegregation of the Kalamazoo public schools, as well as the Kalamazoo system refused to do busing initially. But again, the NAACP got involved and brought about busing and integration of the Kalamazoo public schools. Complaints of discrimination come to the NAACP from labor, from industry, from housing, from education, by people of all nationalities. We like to make it clear to our clients that the NAACP is not just for Black people. We help all races of people who come to us with complaints of discrimination. We work with voter registration, poll watching, phone banking. We had a great presence in the recent election here, and the national office played a major role in the Georgia runoff elections. The NAACP partnered with the Northside Ministerial Alliance to help ensure health and well-being of all persons. We do several different things within the community as listed here. And we have held voter registration. We help with the census. We volunteer at the community food bank. We work with the United Way. We partner with a number of organizations within Kalamazoo. We produced our 40th annual Freedom Fund banquet virtually this year because of the pandemic, where you have to shelter in place. And this is our major money maker for the year to support all of the activities that we are involved in. And we did a number of other things as is listed here. And I'm trying, for the interest of time, we were to be done at 2 o'clock and it's 2:10. So please bear with me for the speed. But what I would like to do, I like to end the talk with a 45-second video of what we call ACTSO, the Academic, Cultural, Technological, Scientific Olympics. And this video just gives you a hint of what we are doing with youth in our organization. Oh, please. Ah.
It's probably taking a minute.
Oh, shoot. I think it's working? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yes, this was great. Thank you so much. Okay, I was going to ask you if there's anything we can add to our chat, and that in case anyone wants to become a member of NAACP or donate or even help volunteer for different opportunities. Now I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Dixon as she.
I just want to thank all the people who stayed. It's so much information. Technically this could have been almost a 2-day event. And I just want to tell the members of the organizations who took time from their day to do these presentations and give us this rich history of Kalamazoo and really the service that they have provided, which is amazing and still are providing. We are so grateful to you, and we honor you, we celebrate you, and we work with you. And hopefully those who have stayed on, they can link up with you for the websites and more information. I just want to say this isn't it. It's hard to actually have all this information, talk about all this wonderful work that organizations are doing in one session, particularly in a 2-hour session. So please feel free to connect with Sid Ellis and Dr. Myers and Wendy Fields for the NAACP and Dr. Michelle Johnson for history, which is amazing about just learning about the significant contributions, and Mothers of Hope. These organizations have been here a long time. They're not going anywhere, and the work they do is so needed. And all of you, all of us, anytime that we have to be able to help, to be part of it, I think that's what Dr. Martin Luther King, his legacy will continue and has continued through their work and through our partnership, and all of us together supporting these organizations and actually working to serve. Because the work is still, goes on and needed. So thank you everyone for your attendance and time. And thank you so much, all of you all who spoke today. We honor you and we celebrate. And we will unite with you in your work that you're doing. So thank you so much. I will say this is recorded. So actually what will happen is that if those people who have actually missed, they will actually be able to later look at the recording. Thank goodness for technology in that regard. So at least they'll have time to do that. And we plan to have other events coming up in Black History Month, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, in February. And in March with that's the month of the woman. And so we will have her come back, Dr. Johnson, to talk more of the historic history, particularly of women leaders and activists in Kalamazoo. So thank you, everyone. And just thank you. Thank you, everyone.